Welcome to the Board of Education's October 6th regular session meeting. Please stand as we observe a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Owen.
Please face the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any elected officials in the room? I think they're probably all next door in another meeting, but yeah, I think so. So a few announcements. Knox County Schools will be closed for fall break next week, October 11th through the 15th. And the Knox County School Central Office will also be closed Thursday, October 14th and Friday, October 15th. I know I speak for the entire board when I wish for a well-deserved restful break for all of our students, families, and staff. I think Ms. Satterfield put it best when she said everyone's April tired right now, so we do hope everyone has a restful break. Also, just a reminder, we have a quarterly work session scheduled for Wednesday, October 27th. We will be receiving our annual legislative update from our class representatives. I believe that may be a good opportunity for us to discuss our 2022 legislative priorities as well, so please keep that in mind over the coming weeks. A few changes to the agenda. First, the grant contract attached to item 8D regarding the Tennessee Department of Education EPIC grant is now in final form. There were no changes to the draft document that was previously attached. Also, you received an email this morning with information regarding our Superintendent Search Committee appointments with documents on the TSBA Superintendent Search Service, as well as a summary of Knox County procurement process. Those documents are also attached to item 10E for discussion. Are there any other requested changes to the agenda? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I have a request for a board form be included at the end of today's meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just asking on the, what you just talked about, the superintendent search, do we, if we're going to make motions, do we do it at the time that comes, or do we need to make it now?
At the time.
Okay.
All right. Any other changes? So do we have a motion to approve the agenda? So a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we do have some special recognition of reward schools and schools exiting targeted support and improvement status tonight. And I think Superintendent, want to take it from there?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. And I think Ms. Thompson is, where is Ms. Thompson? Okay, she's on her way to the lectern there, so she will be making the announcements. I'd like for the board member from each district as we give the certificates to be present for a picture. Thank you.
Superintendent, Madam Chair, members of the school board, I'm excited tonight to be here to recognize 9 elementary reward schools and 8 elementary schools that have moved off the state target list. These schools have had significant growth and achievement, and the fact that they did it during a pandemic is amazing. The principals and staff at each school are to be commended for their intentional focus on effective instruction and student learning. They've created a positive culture in their building that has led to increased student achievement and created an environment to meet the individual needs of students. Superintendent Thomas, Madam Chair, and school board members, I'm pleased to recognize the following schools and their staff. Our reward schools And principals and staff, when I call your name, if you want to come forward, when I call your name, we will give you the banner and take a picture. Bluegrass Elementary, Principal Jamie Cantrell.
Start right here. All right, 1, 2, 3.
I apologize. I realize I probably should have noted that reward schools are schools that have ranked in the top 10% in all the schools across the state of Tennessee. So this is no small feat. Our next school is A.L. Lotz Elementary School. Principal Gina Bird. We will get you your banner. I apologize. We will get you your banner. Your banner will be presented. It was a late ad from the state. Steve Rudder sent it to us.
All right. Picture real quick. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Copper Ridge Elementary, Principal Dr. Jennifer Adkins.
All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Coreyton Elementary School, Principal Aaron Maddox. Farragut Intermediate School, Principal Debbie Adarante. Sequoia Elementary School. Principal Shay Seiler. While we're getting everyone together, I would also be remiss if I didn't say that Ms. Seiler leaves tomorrow for Washington, D.C., where she's going to be recognized as the Tennessee National Distinguished Principal. So we're excited to have you with us. Shannondale Elementary School, Principal Renee Rapika. Our next school is North Shore Elementary School, Principal Keith Cottrell. I'm sorry, Dr. Keith Cottrell. Do we have anyone here from Hardin Valley Elementary? Or Rocky Hill Elementary? No, yes. So both of Hardin Valley Elementary and Rocky Hill Elementary were reward schools, but they have no one here. Their principals are unavailable tonight. So let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. All right, the next category are the schools that they were exiting from targeted support and improvement. The following schools, Cedar Bluff Elementary. Do you want to open it?
All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
A.L. Lotz Elementary School. This is significant. A.L. Lotz School was a targeted support and improvement school, which meant that their scores were in the lowest 10% in some sections last year, and they have moved to a reward school. So that's huge improvement. So congratulations. Inskip Elementary School. Principal Lynn Coleman. Carnes Elementary School, Principal Jamie Romick.
Open the certificate, Betsy. Open it up there. Flip. One, two, three. One, two, three.
West Haven Elementary School, Principal Carl Whipple.
One, two, three. One, two, three.
I would also like to recognize the following schools that could not be here tonight due to family engagement events at their school or staff illness. Bell Morris Elementary, Chilhowie Intermediate, and Norwood Elementary. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board, Superintendent. I want to recognize Cedar Bluff, so if Terry Naraporty would come up here beside me. Cedar Bluff, under the leadership of Principal Terry Naraporty here, has moved off the TSI list. That is a huge accomplishment. It's a lot of work, and she is one of our best instructional leaders. Cedar Bluff staff is to be commended for an outstanding job. She's a true advocate for kids, her staff, and students, and she prides herself in developing relationships. I guarantee you she knows every kid out there and all their families. So kudos to you, Terry, and thank you for doing a great job, and kudos to you and your staff. So if you'll take the stage, we'll get your snapshot.
All right. One, two, three. One, two, three.
So congratulations to all of those schools, and thank you to all of our principals for coming tonight. We do have one more recognition for Ms. Horn, who was our board chair. It certainly did not go unnoticed or unappreciated, and on behalf of the entire board, I wanted to present you with this gavel. I feel like after last year, it should be gold, but we are on a budget, so sorry. So if the whole board wants to. so we will turn it over to Ms. Coatney to read our regular agenda. And just a reminder that the board did have a detailed discussion on all agenda items at the September 29th work session. Ms. Coatney?
Item 6, consent agenda.
So a motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7A, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy B-180, public forum as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Ms. Satterfield?
Yes, I have a discussion. I don't know if this is how you do it right now, but I would like to make a amendment to the motion. Is that right? Okay. I would like to move that we suspend policy B-200 requiring 2 readings, and we approve policy B-180 in 1 reading.
Okay, so any discussion? So the amended, is it amended?
I have a question.
Okay.
So if we voted on this, when does it take effect?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Babb. If you suspend the policy and approve it on the first reading, then it would take effect immediately.
So any other discussion? So the amended motion, will you read that one more time, Ms.?
Yes, I would like to move that we suspend our current policy of B-200 requiring 2 readings, and we approve policy B-180 on 1 reading.
So Mr. McMillan seconded that. Okay, so no more discussion. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're voting on the amended. Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. So now we are voting on the amended motion. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7B, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy D-100, fiscal management goals and objectives as amended.
So a motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? Mr. Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out for those who have not followed this discussion in our policy review that what we're really trying to do in this is make it easier for the public to engage in our budgeting process throughout the year. We're going to give more time and start earlier. So I appreciate the administration taking the time and the effort to suggest those changes and look forward to seeing more engagement from the community in that process.
Thank you. No more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7C, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-121, enrollment in college-level courses as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7D, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-130, work-based learning as amended.
So a motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7E, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-140, homebound instruction as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Mr. Watson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7F, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-171, interscholastic athletics as amended.
So motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7G, approve first reading to rescind Knox County Board of Education Policy I-180, Adult Apprenticeship Program.
So a motion by Ms. Owen, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7H, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-190, Organization for Instruction as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7I, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-210, Textbook and Instructional Materials, Selection, Distribution, and Care as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7J, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-250, Off-Campus Trips as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Mr. Watson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7K, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-290, ESL Program Policy as amended.
So a motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7L, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-370, Graduation Requirements as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7M, approve first reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-440, Wellness Policy, Nutritional Standards for Food Items Sold as amended.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7N, approve first reading to rescind Knox County Board of Education Policy I-441, Wellness Policy, Physical Activity.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
8A, approve receipt of Tennessee Department of Education American Rescue Plan and Individuals with Disability Act grant in the amount of $3,489,598.65 and American Rescue Plan and Individuals with Disabilities Act for Preschool grant in the amount of $232,650.65 for fiscal year 2022.
A motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8B, approve Tennessee Department of Education application and budget overview for the fiscal year 2022 elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3.0 grant in the amount of $114,112,117.74.
So a motion by Ms. Babb and a second by Ms. Henderson, and I believe we have public forum.
Yes,
on this.
Madam Chair, we have 2 people signed up for public forum, and so we will start with Christina Morales. All right, and then we will go with David Mickey.
All right, so we had a motion by Ms. Babb. No? And a second by Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C, approve receipt of Tennessee Department of Education ESSER planning grant for the fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $150,000.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Mr. Watson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
8D, approve grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Education for the term of November 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, to continue support of the Knox County Schools Educator Preparation Program through experienced professional in the classroom grant funds.
So a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
8E, approve receipt of Gen Youth and the Dairy Alliance COVID-19 Emergency School Meal Delivery Funding in the amount of $2,000 for Carter High School for reimbursement of expenses related to equipment and supplies needed for feeding students during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So motion by Mr. McMillan, second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
8F, approve receipt of Tennessee Department of Education ARP Homeless 2.0 grant in the amount of $412,593.04 for the 2021 and 2022 and 2022-2023 school years.
So motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A, approve design contract with SME plus Busby Architects, PC, for roof replacement at Carter High School in the amount of $124,000 using capital improvement plan funds.
So a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A, approve employee health insurance premium rates for 2022 to reflect employer covering entire increase.
Okay, so a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Babb, and I think we have a public.
Yes, we have a public forum speaker, Ms. Paula Hancock. And if you can state your name, county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Paula Hancock, President, Knox County Education Association, Knoxville, Tennessee. I would just like to take this opportunity and take a moment to thank Superintendent Thomas for recommending to the Knox County Board of Education the approval of employee health insurance premium rates for 2022 to reflect employer covering the entire increase. I would also like to take this time to thank the board members for your consideration of the recommendation, and also to thank all of the representatives and facilitators of the Knox County Schools, Knox County Education Association, PECA team. Thank you all so much.
So we have a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B, approve fiscal year 2021 year-end budget adjustment.
So a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Mr. Watson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
10C, approve increase of $85,800 to design contract for the Gibbs High School Stadium replacement project.
So a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Ms. Bounds. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10D, approve request for waiver of career and technical education class average limit.
So motion by Ms. Babb, second by Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10E, discussion and possible action on process for superintendent search.
Motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Babb, and we do have public forum speakers on this.
Yes, we have Linda Arnold. Linda Arnold. All right, Mary Jane Morris. If you can state your name and county of residence and stay on the topic of superintendent search.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mary Jane Morris. I'm a resident of Knox County, and I live in District 3. I'm also a member of the KCS PASS group, and I want to be here tonight to thank all of our educators as well and the panel on the board for hearing us and listening to our request to have more advocacy and transparency on your search for what we have for the superintendent coming up. I recently heard an interview from the board on the evening news that they said, quote, "We have plenty of time to find a new superintendent." I understand the start of the next school year seems like it's a lifetime away, and this board might be inclined to have a speedy, maybe closed-door decision-making process to find a new superintendent. But I encourage the board to make this a transparent recruitment process. Please understand the importance of having a third-party, unbiased recruitment from outside of Knoxville firm assist with this search. The board must act now on the recruitment efforts before an ideal candidate is lost to another more proactive school district. I ask that you realize the different weights of your voices, understanding and considerations of having the outside perspective come in to help with this, bringing in those experts, allowing different legal experts to handle legal discussions, bring in recruiting experts to handle the recruitment to find this new superintendent. Please make sure that we are carrying a torch and that you are understanding the weight of your voices and the weight of your decisions and making sure that this is a completely bipartisan. They're not involved in any pro this or pro that, and we are all just coming together to find that ideal replacement for Superintendent Thomas. So thank you all for your time and hearing us.
Okay, that's all. Okay, so before we start discussion, I just want board members to know that I didn't take these appointments lightly. At our annual workshop, I heard a couple of people say that we needed representation from urban, suburban, and rural parts of the district. Also, the three that I recommended on this committee had all expressed very different ideas about how they wanted the search to go. I know that Ms. Satterfield had stated that she, felt like we needed an outside search firm as opposed to the TSBA, which Ms. Bounds had mentioned wanting to do at the workshop. And then Ms. Henderson came with a completely different idea of wanting a community panel. So I just felt like that kind of brought all of those differing ideas together. And that would make it a more well-rounded committee. So that was how I landed on those three.
Want us to move to accept your nomination of the committee? I so move.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any more discussion?
On the committee or the whole thing?
The committee. Okay, so on the committee only, is that right, Mr. Dupler? So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so TSBA and RFP documents are attached. If we want to have a discussion on those two, right? And then someone can make a motion?
Yes, but thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to let you all know that, so I passed out some sheets there right after the meeting started. That was just some extra information from procurement. The document that's attached to your agenda was actually on bids, which is a different process than an RFP. So Matt Myers with procurement wanted to make sure that you all had the correct information on RFP. And that information is straight from the Knox County Procurement Code. Thank you.
Ms. Satterfield?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to share the reason why I believe we need an RFP, just for a bigger opportunity. So Knox County as a whole gets a lot of flack regarding not doing business with diverse populations. And while it might sometimes be intentional, it could also be the process that happens right now in the decision-making that we're doing here. So I believe it's on, like, our duty as governing bodies to be able to cast the widest net as possible, versus going with the tried and true of what we know, and who has done the service for us, or done the service for Tennessee. So I think we have to do our job as governing bodies to cast that net wide to ensure that we're not excluding anybody, but more importantly, giving access to people who would never even have the opportunity to if we go with the same tried and true individuals. So that's why I support an RFP. Now, we might only get 2 proposals, as we've seen previously, but we did our due diligence to move Knox County forward in doing business with representation that is not the same.
Ms. Bowden?
Yeah, I've kind of been mixed. I mean, I definitely support doing a third party, and I'm very happy that I think just from our discussions, it sounded like a lot of people thought that way. And then after listening to TSBA versus the RFP process, I have to say I'm a little mixed about it, but I probably lean towards the RFP because, as we listened to last week, should we not like any of the firms that come to us through the RFP process, we actually could choose TSBA. So it kind of doesn't knock TSBA out of it by doing the RFP process. So I think that kind of, I would kind of agree with Ms. Satterfield, and I think Mr. Watson made a comment that really stuck with me, that, this really is, for most of us on the board, one of the most important decisions we'll be making going forward. And I do think we've just got to put the best due diligence into it. And so I do think the RFP process will widen the net of firms to look at. And should we not like who is coming this way, I think it gives us the option to then go to TSBA.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated last week, I'm really in favor of going with TSBA, and just kind of in thinking through the reasons why. One of them is the RFP process is definitely more time consuming. So if we go through an RFP process and we don't like who, if it's only 1 or 2 firms that come back and we don't go with that, then we've kind of wasted, a couple of months. So that concerns me, because I think we have 8 or 9 months, but that's going to fly. So I'm concerned that could take too long. I think that it's entirely possible that if we went with a national firm, that they're going to be calling TSBA to see if TSBA has candidates that they would suggest from Tennessee. I mean, I think that TSBA is a resource for search firms across the nation who do this kind of work. So that's another reason. TSBA, we know them. We know what we're getting. We know what the cost is. We know what the time frame is. They could start right away. I took your suggestion, Ms. Babb. I liked your suggestion about calling some other districts who've used TSBA, and I actually sent several emails and some phone calls, and I got back. I was surprised how many people I heard back from, and they were overwhelmingly positive. And someone I talked to today, he said they've used TSBA twice now over time. One guy, of course, this is a school district that has 13,000 kids. They had 40 or 50 applicants. So they, a couple of them I talked to, one said that they did not cast a wide net. They only looked for the South. He said, I would recommend that you look at the country, do a national search, but they had only asked for a southern search. One said he couldn't say enough good things about TSBA, that they were a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he appreciated that Tammy Grissom drove 3 hours to present the candidates to them when they narrowed it down. And many of them did say that they were given all of the candidates to review, but TSBA narrowed it down according to whatever their specifications were. So it was very positive feedback. As I said, I'm concerned about going through the process and getting to a point where we decide that we don't like it. We've kind of wasted a couple of months. And I feel like our students have been jerked around so much over the past 18 months that we need to make sure that we do this in the time frame that we have. And if we go with TSBA, we can hit the ground running, get those community meetings going, and talk about and dream a little bit about what kind of superintendent that our community wants. And we can get going on that sooner rather than later. So those are some of my reasons why I think we should go with TSBA. And I will just remind the board that I am on the board of TSBA, Board of Directors. Receive no compensation for that, but just wanted to make sure everybody knows I am on their board, and that's part of why I feel like I have gotten to know them a little bit better over the last 6 months that I've been on the board, and I feel like they are. I like the idea that I know them and that they're trustworthy and that they have. We know without a doubt that they have Knox County's best interest at heart because we're a member of that organization. So I think they have. They would have good intentions with trying to find the best superintendent for us.
I appreciated the one that said that they wished that they had not done just a Southern search, but a national search. And not any, it sounds like everybody was favorable to them, but did you get any feedback of, we wish we'd done this differently? Not necessarily the decision of TSBA, but just something that they had kind of learned through the process.
There was one today that did have a couple, she had more of that kind of, let me see if I can find it. I think it's this one. She said, let's see. She said that the interview was very organized, the process was very organized and made it easy to go through the process. I would, however, suggest that you not limit the choice of finalists. They asked the choice of finalists. They had asked them for 3, but in reviewing the applications, they felt like they would have liked to interview several others. She said they will meet with you to understand your needs, so be honest in what your expectations are. And so that was her. So basically, she was saying, don't limit whatever they find, like look at all the candidates. And I think somebody else said something similar. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that, most of them didn't really have, another one did have one piece of advice. Consider the salary range. They didn't feel like that they put out a salary that was competitive enough to begin with. So their advice was basically, and this was a search in 2019 and in Dyersburg, and basically just said, consider your salary range and maybe even increase it 10 to 15% to make sure. He said, their experience was that people were looking at the salary range. If it wasn't what they were looking for, they didn't give it a second glance. So that was another piece of advice that was a little bit different. And that man also told me that somebody in another county did not use, I don't know what county he was talking about, but a friend of his in another county did not use TSBA and regretted that they didn't use TSBA. And I think that's about it. Most of the other ones were just, good candidates. That one, the one that narrowed the search to the South, they liked 4 out of the 5 of the candidates that they did end up with that were just from the southern region. So,
Ms. Bounds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I prepared some remarks here based on what we heard last week, and I would just say, to be brutally honest, I was very disappointed in procurement's presentation last week. I felt it was very incomplete and weak, and the one-page attachment today looks very complex and complicated, and as Ms. Horn said, time-consuming, and I believe takes away some board control. 2 things that stood out was when Mr. Myers was questioned, he said, we will try to develop a scope of work, and that wasn't just real reassuring to me. And he didn't seem to know a whole lot about school-related searches. The most troubling thing was when asked about the number of candidates related to the search for health positions, he acknowledged they received only 2 and later blamed it on the climate of health care. But I'm sorry, my feelings are, given the salary of those positions and the location of Knoxville, I feel like that's an inadequate explanation. TSBA's average candidates is 19, and even our in-house search for a superintendent last time produced 25 quality candidates. KCS is under a mandate, and I just question if we could get more than 2. And then on the other hand, if you look over the TSBA that we had attached today, Ms. Grissom last week answered and addressed all questions by this board concisely with confidence and competence, including the 13 questions that Mr. Watson submitted prior to our meeting. And then reading over the 12-page attachment today, I believe they can produce an excellent search in a timely manner for our next superintendent. So those are my thoughts on the RFP and TSBA. Thank you.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bounds, just a point of clarification. I think that the presentation last week was talking about 2 candidates for search firms for that position. It wasn't actual candidates for the position. I just want to make sure that's clear, because that would be very discouraging if they only brought 2 candidates. I don't think that process went underway yet. Also, I made some of these comments before, but just to reiterate them, I really appreciate Ms. Grissom and all the work that she did to come last week virtually and speak to the board and share the process that they have, also answer questions in advance. I still think in terms of the ability to find a search firm, we're comparing TSBA to itself. We don't know what other possibilities are out there. I also spoke to one other district that used TSBA. It was a larger district in the state of Tennessee. They said they did a fine job. They said no bells and whistles, which, I don't think anybody was expecting that based off the presentation last week. They made a comment that they were okay on diversity. I would, like Ms. Babb said, I do think this is probably the most consequential decision we'll make in the next few years in terms of our superintendent search firm, and I want us to, or not firm, but the superintendent, and I want to make sure that we're doing all that we can in terms of due diligence to be able to see what's out there. Again, it's nothing against TSBA, but it is a cookie-cutter approach. We know that there's not a lot of opportunity for us to speak into different types of services. It's not kind of an a la carte kind of approach. And although I think Mr. Myers last week was accurate that they would help us build a scope of work, I really think it's the job of the board to build out the scope of work for the search firm. So I wouldn't depend on procurement to outline all the things that we might need within a search firm process. And I think that some of the work that the search committee that we just approved would do is help flesh out what that scope of work would be for that search firm and what the possibilities might be. So.
Ms. Horn.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's one of my concerns with the RFP process is the issue of the scope of work and the board helping put that together. I guess my question is twofold. How would we do that, and how long is that going to take? How much time is that going to take us? Because I can see that taking longer than would be optimal and pushing us further down the line. So that's a concern for me. So when we talk about having input on that RFP, can we talk about what that looks like and what that process would be? Mr. Dupler, maybe, I don't know if maybe Mr. Myers is here, but I'm just concerned about that.
I think Mr. Myers is here, and I think he can certainly speak to that. And I know that his department would do a great job. I mean, but it's really up to the board to weigh the pros and cons of each process. But go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Matt Myers, Knox County Director of Procurement. The RFP process is, the document itself is basically already created. There are several sections that we have and we use in all RFPs. What we would ask the board or the committee would be a scope of work. That scope of work could be a page, it could be 5 pages, whatever you come up with. We fold it into the document, and then it's ready to go out, once it's been reviewed again, and everybody sign off on it. So that scope of work, I'm sure I said last week that we would help. We have some resources. We have our national association that we can, reach out to and see if anybody else has done that. I'm sure they have. The scope of work that we did for the medical director and the public health officer, were written in-house. We used some of the HR documents that we had as well. So when I said that we would help you, we'll help put it together, but, we would need that scope of work from you all.
So I guess my question is, so if the board is involved in that process, I would assume we would vote on that, Mr. Dupler, and that would be then November at the earliest.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Horn. So it could be done, a couple different ways, but I would agree that probably the best way is to put together some type of document. What I would envision, one way to do it would be for you all to submit individual, opinions on what the scope of work, what you want it to look like. That can then be put together by Ms. Coatney or somebody else administration, and then come back with some type of a document that would entail the scope of work, and then the board could vote on it, and then that way, then it would really be up to procurement to do what they need to do.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at, if we did that in November, then December, January for 2 months for procurement, so we're looking at beginning in February. Okay, all right, I think that's concerning, but that's just me.
Mr. McMillan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I had spoken previously about my preference. I think that it's important that we find somebody who understands our expectation. Now, we share a lot of the same expectation. We maybe don't share all, because the Knox County is so different in different parts, different areas. But somebody that can understand that and can adjust to that. I don't care whether they're, from here, from East Tennessee, or from North Carolina. I probably wouldn't, my personal preference, I wouldn't go way out. I wouldn't want somebody from New York. I just state that flat out. That's my opinion. And in reference to Ms. Babb's comment about maybe we could go out there and see what's out there, if we didn't like 2 or 3 or whatever, I couldn't help but think about, this is simplistic, but I think it speaks to the point. It'd be like being the third person that was asked to go to the prom. Would you like that? I don't know that Ms. Grissom and TSBA would feel that way, but if we did that scenario, they would have every right to. Thank you.
Ms. Bounds?
I think this is highly important. Before we vote, I'd like to remind this board that the University of Tennessee fired 3 presidents in a span of 10 years. These presidents were a result of a national search from search firms hired by the Board of Trustees. And additionally, prior to Superintendent Thomas and the board I chaired, previous boards hired national search firms which resulted in 2 superintendents being fired, terminated, or resigning under questionable practices. So I don't think we can say that a national search firm for a national candidate does ensure success or guarantee the best. And I think we have to look at what's right in front of us as far as the University of Tennessee and the lack of success they had in Knox County Schools. And prior to Superintendent Thomas, we hired 2 from search firms, and they were both resigned or fired.
Mr. Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Dupler, we could call a special called meeting and approve a scope of work prior to the November meeting, correct?
Yes, I mean, the chair can call it, or the board can call it
Yeah.
by majority.
Yeah, I think just in the next 9 months, that we may end up having some need for some special called meetings. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a time, but I think that could happen. Also, I think some of the work that would be done between now and January 1 or whatever there's some concurrent work that could also be happening. I think we could run a community engagement process even while we're looking at and considering possible search firms. And then in terms of the development of a scope of work, we had some conversation around that at our retreat, and I think I had presented a combination of 3 different scopes of work that both from our process last time internally, also from some things through TSBA, and then also from another district and another state. So I think that when I talk to some other districts, they have said that scope of work development process has taken them 2 to 3 hours to carve out and get that done. And I don't think we have to start from scratch. I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities out there about what you could include as scope of work. I don't think we'd have to start from a blank slate.
Ms. Satterfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Susan, for bringing that information. It did give me more insight about what TSBA can offer, and also just testimonies from other people that went through the process, so that was good. Thank you so much. So I just want to clarify if there's any confusion among the boards. My opposition isn't with TSBA. I do still believe that it's cookie cutter in the process, but that information you provided is good to give me a little hope that they'll be able to do a good job. My reasoning for RFP is just making it as clear as possible that it's these decisions that continues to keep Knox County in the bottom pool when it comes to working with diverse businesses and opportunities as a whole. And so it's this moment here, not the moment of the RFPs or the moment of the people that come into the county, but it's the decision making that we make at the moment to not even open it up to provide the access that's keeping Knox County at the bottom from that area. So that's where my clarity is. Not necessarily TSB. I do think that they'll do a great job, but just doing.
Community forums, if we were going to do community forums while we're waiting throughout the RFP process, are we assuming that our staff would conduct those? Can we just talk about that? Because to me, that's a big deal, because our staff is stretched right now, and I don't think we should put anything else on them. So that would be a concern for me.
And that is actually why I recommended Ms. Henderson to be on the committee, because she wanted a community-based search. And Knox Education Foundation has graciously offered to help facilitate those community discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can do that working with them, and we can have a good, healthy input from the community that way.
Okay.
As well as, just what the community wants to see.
Okay. All right.
In the superintendent. And I will say that, the problematic part for me about the RFP is the time piece, because I can see, as with other things we've done, just kind of getting, hung up on things and not being able to move forward. And I do think that we need to have someone in place before school starts next year.
So I make a motion to go with TSBA for our superintendent search.
So there's a motion by Ms. Horn to use TSBA for the superintendent search, a second by Ms. Henderson. We want to do. I'm sorry. Was your light on?
It is now.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Oh, no, it's just now for that motion. If we vote not to go ahead with TSBA now, could we still vote in favor of TSBA in the future?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Owen. Yes, I mean, this vote, what I'm hearing tonight would be that you're not going to go with, if a vote no would be not to go with TSBA now, but perhaps in the future, as has been discussed after an RFP.
So any more discussion on that? Okay.
Ms. Satterfield?
No.
Ms. Owen?
No.
Mr. Watson? No. Ms. Babb?
No.
Ms. Horn?
Yes.
Ms. Henderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bounds?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Christie?
Yes.
That's 5 yes votes and 4 no votes.
So motion carries. So does that conclude our? All right, so Ms. Satterfield? Is it public forum? Hey, well, before we do public forum, does the board want to take a short recess?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I know we had two motions within that one agenda item, but has the agenda item closed, the discussion? Because I have a question related to what we just decided.
No, I mean, we can, yeah.
So the question I have is there's two fee bases for TSBA. There's the $6,500 one and there's a $11,500 one. And Ms. Horn did not clarify, so I don't know what we actually just bought.
That's a good point.
I make a motion to go with Plan B, which is $11,500.
And the difference.
Since we have now decided that we are going with TSBA, I would like to make a motion that we are going with Plan B, which is the 11.5. Is that, I believe that's correct.
Second it.
Thank you. And just to clarify, the 11,500 involves their community engagement process. So
Correct.
I think it's important for the board as we consider this potential vote. I don't know that using their process limits us doing another process as well, but you know, we are in some ways deciding how much do we want to engage the community in this vote, so.
Right, and so technically, I think it's called Plan 2. I'll just correct myself. Do we have a second?
Ms. Babb?
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, I was for the RFP, but I mean, I think TSBA can do a good job too, so it's not like I'm upset about this vote. I would like, and I guess I'm probably talking to the committee members that we have elected, is to maybe talk to TSBA. I mean, I'm going to support that we go with the Fuller project, but even on the, I feel like a lot of our discussion has been around wanting community engagement and involvement. And I do think when we talked to Tammy, it seemed a little cookie cut. That was probably my biggest, like, we just do it this way and everything. That maybe we could talk about some expansion of their services, even if it costs a little bit more, or if there's more of we can engage another group to do further community engagement. I would just kind of like that discussion to happen with them. Like I said, I do think that they can do a good job for us. I think maybe just exploring a little bit of their cookie cutterness and if they can expand to work with maybe some other things that we want.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment to include community input facilitation with the Knox Ed Foundation.
In addition to what TSBA does?
Yes. So TSBA's Plan B, and when we talked to Tammy last time, she said that she could include whatever feedback we wanted to put in with it. So to include the community input that was discussed, done by the Knox Ed Foundation. So that wouldn't be any more for TSBA, but it would get that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I got a question. What exactly are they gonna do? Are they gonna offer advice? Are they gonna be out, as a secondary? Now, we sat here and voted on it. We've chosen somebody. And now, I'm not gonna be a party to sitting around and trying to hack it up. And that's kind of what you all are doing, it sounds like. I have no qualms with them offering their opinion. Matter of fact, I would love to see Tammy Grissom and Miss Babb have a good conversation and her to get out all what she wants to roam and find all these supernatural people that she thinks exist. But I think it's pretty simple, and I think y'all trying to complicate it. Now, as far as a little bit more money, if you want to do something, if Tammy wants to take it up to, what was it, 11.5? So somewhere 11 something. If we want to take it up to 20,000 or 25,000 and do some expanded work, but I want them to do the work. I don't want to help her over here. Do what?
So
That was actually what I suggested, Mike.
just to touch base, though, on the work Knox Ed Foundation, I mean, they are in our community.
Well, they're
doing
fine.
this.
They're
I mean,
fine.
they got the input for the ESSER funding. They just facilitate the community meetings and bring back to us what the community.
If that's what they do, I'm fine with that, But as I've said before, I want somebody that understands East Tennessee, Knox County values. Now, you could be a superintendent in some of these counties where it would just be like you'd have maybe 2 or 3 high schools and a few middle schools and elementary schools, and it's nothing, compared to what Knox County is with the number of people that we employ, the number of kids we serve, and people move from other counties because they don't have the services that we offer, and they've done it for years. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying it as a statement of fact. We're the 3rd largest district in the state of Tennessee, and I think we're probably in the low 70s. About 5 or 6 years ago, we were the 75th, I think, largest district in the entire United States. So I have no problem with you getting extra input, as long as everybody understands what we're doing and what we want. Thank you.
And I'm gonna go to Ms. Henderson first, since she's not had an opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to agree with what Ms. Christie said. KEF is in our community. They are in our schools. But maybe our committee could work with TSB, or work with KEF and negotiate kind of their role and then bring that back. Maybe that's something that the committee could work on and bring back to the full board, just a suggestion.
Mr. Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with that, Ms. Henderson. I think that's part of the role of that subcommittee, is to help negotiate those additional pieces to this. I think with that being said, and again, this is nothing against TSBA, I don't know that if we want to consider using KEF, which I do think, based on Tammy's presentation last week and what we know about KEF's other community engagement work, they would be able to do a more robust process than what Tammy and them are able to do. And that's because they decide, here's the guardrails in which we're going to do it. We're going to have 4 meetings on one day, and then we're going to tell you what we learned. I don't know that paying an additional $5,000 for that, and then also bringing in KEF, which would do that and then much more, I would assume, is needed. So my preference would be is that we contract TSBA at the $6,500 level let them do their core service, and then let the subcommittee decide on how to engage KEF in a more robust community engagement process. Because, as I said several times, I think some of those things can happen concurrently. And KEF is already in our community. They've already helped us with community engagement work in the past. They know what works in this community, how people have responded, how to get people to the table. If KEF was not here, I would say let's spend $11,500 and use their service for the community engagement. But I think it's a little bit duplicitous to do both. I just don't know that we need both.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My purpose for offering the amendment to include KEF was because when I asked Tammy last week whether TSBA would be willing to have more community input than just the one day, she was very opposed to that. So if we really want a great deal of community input, then I think we need to take every opportunity to gather that community input. And if TSBA's process doesn't include it, but they are willing to take other input, which she said she was, then I want that community input.
Ms. Bell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no opposition to this board utilizing KEF, and they have been a vital part of the community, and the predecessor to KEF has been a vital part of the community. I just didn't, I really don't, I have problems with it being put forth as a friendly amendment and being done like that. I thought Ms. Henderson's suggestion was much better, and bringing it back to the whole board. And I think that puts us also in singling out one group. I mean, are we, you know, the amendment before us is only for KEF, but that kind of singles out one specific group, and I would rather just do it in a framework other than a friendly amendment. But that's just my opinion. And I would have to go back and pull up the 12-page document, which I don't have in front of me. But I thought, and Ms. Horn may be able to correct that, I thought the $11,500 included more than just the community input. So if that's the case, I would support the $11,500. And there were some additional costs in there for TSBA for, I don't remember what it was now, but I thought it was a good idea. So I think we would have to cap, maybe like we did last time, the amount of money we're going to spend on a superintendent search, but this would be the baseline. And I think Mr. Watson indicated that KEF would do their work at no cost, maybe. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I don't think we should use this approach in a friendly amendment and bind TSBA's hands. That's my thoughts.
Mr. McMillan? Ms. Babb?
Yeah, mine was just on the 11,500. I think I sort of agree with Patty that I felt like there was more than just.
I have it right here. It's attached to our agenda.
So is the only difference, once again, what is the difference between?
The
So it's just community engagement at the $6,500. Well, I mean, there's some of like the interviewing the board members. Okay.
Mr. Watson?
Yes, Madam Chair. I was just going to say that there's 5 bullet points for the additional $5,000. It reads, provide all services listed in Plan 1, which would be obvious. Conduct employee and community meetings, conduct individual interviews with each board member, and then report the results to the board. So for that $5,000, the only thing that I think we're guaranteed in the additional services is the community engagement piece. And so again, I would recommend, like Ms. Bounds as well and Ms. Henderson, that the committee be tasked with trying to figure out how to do that community engagement piece with the support of KEF. And I don't know that we need the additional $5,000 in services from TSBA.
Mr. McMillan, Ms. Horn?
Well, I think you're right. I think if that's the question, I think, is if we really, it really is all, that Plan 2 really is all around the community input. So if we want the input and the recommended criteria from TSBA in addition to KEF, then we should go with that. If we don't, then the 6,500 would be sufficient. But back to, I think what Ms. Bounds and Ms. Henderson have said, you know, it may be better to work through that separately, I don't know, but, so I'm not sure if we need the additional support, I guess. So maybe the 6,500 would be adequate, perhaps. But I kind of like the, I mean, I kind of like the idea of the Plan 2 and doing it in concert. I feel like we get, that way you get the viewpoint, because TSBA included in that is they're recommending their criteria, so they're a completely outside agency that is then bringing back what they saw. And it's going to be very, you know, completely unbiased look at what they heard and saw. So we may want it just to have both viewpoints. It could offer, I think that, you know, that may be worth the extra time and money. So any thoughts on that?
Ms. Babb?
This might be a Mr. Dupler question. We voted on TSBA. Do we have to decide on the level tonight? Because I almost feel like I would like our three-person committee to talk to TSBA a little bit and explore this and sort of look at how they can do it. But do we need to decide? I mean, it's $5,000. I mean, I know $5,000 is maybe a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of our search, I'm just wondering if we could have the three-person committee really talk to TSBA and evaluate what they can bring and do it, or do we need to decide on this level or that level tonight? I don't know that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Ms. Babb. The answer is the board's in charge. So you all talk it out and figure out which way you want to go. I mean, frankly, you could do it whichever way that this board decides to do it. You could go with one of the two plans. You could add KEF. You could leave a piece off. I mean, literally, you all decide how you want to do it.
And we do have a motion on the floor. Okay. And Mr. Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last comment. I think based on that conversation, Ms. Babb and Mr. Dupler, I think let's go ahead and approve the minimum contract, the $6,500, and then let the committee talk to KEF and TSBA, and then add if we want to add the additional services of TSBA later. Can we do that?
Should I withdraw my friendly amendment? Is that easy?
I mean, yeah, somebody's gonna have to, withdraw something and then, you know,
Okay,
agree
agree
one or
on that
both,
withdrawal.
or, yeah.
So, well, you're next. Do you want to? Or are you going to make another motion if she's withdrawing her
Okay,
amendment?
so the
your
motion that we have on the floor is to approve Plan B, Plan
Right.
2. So my thoughts are this: I could offer I could amend my motion to approve this contract with TSBA up to $11,500, which would then give the ability to our three-person committee to determine which one to go with.
Second.
Okay. So that's my official amendment.
Wait a minute.
Okay, but Mike wants to speak, so.
Mr. McMillan?
So the committee would decide whether it was 11.5 or 65. You know, as Mr. Dupler said, the board's in charge. And it appears to me that the people who lost just are very slyly sophisticated, trying to hack into it again. If you lose, you lose. You know, you ought to shut up if you lost.
Okay, so we have, we have a motion on the floor and a second.
What is the motion?
A motion was to approve
Up to
up to
$11,500.
$11,500. TSBA search by Ms. Horn, seconded by Ms. Satterfield,
I thought I seconded that one.
or seconded by Mr.
I
McMillan.
don't care at this point.
He did, yeah. You did the first one, but she
Okay,
withdrew
I'm
it.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
she
sorry.
withdrew that one.
I stand corrected.
So,
So I have
okay, so
Is that it?
that's what's on the floor right now, yes.
So what about all this other stuff?
The committee would work with Knox Ed Foundation and TSBA with how they're going to do the community.
So they have no official role in it at this point? Okay,
Correct.
let's go.
Okay, Ms. Horn, or,
Okay, so I just want to say, while we have our committee gathered here for the search committee, my vote would be to go with the 11.5. I'm willing to, I'm fine if you don't, but my recommendation as a board member would be to go with 11.5. I really like the idea of having a completely outside agency do, it's only one day of community meetings, but do that day of community meetings, and then in addition to whatever you guys decide with Knox Ed Foundation. So that is just, I just want the board to know the committee to know my intention, what I would prefer.
Somebody state what we're actually voting on.
Say what?
I believe the motion on the floor is to approve TSBA for a superintendent search service up to $11,500.
Period.
right. So did you have
That
anything?
was
else,
seconded by
Mr.
Ms. Satterfield.
Let's vote.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna do a roll call on that.
Ms. Satterfield? Yes. Ms. Owen? Yes. Mr. Watson? Ms. Babb? Ms. Horn? Ms. Henderson? Ms. Bounds? Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Christie? That's 9 yes vote.
So, did you have something else, Mr. Watson, about that?
Well, again, I think the original motion is still on the floor for the discussion, so I just wanted to bring up one more point for the subcommittee to be considering as they do their work, since we don't meet together often. Is that okay? Because the discussion is still up, right, that agenda item? Until Ms. Christie closes it?
Yeah, I think the discussion was which TSBA plan we were going with. So what?
I was talking
what
about
were
the
you
actual agenda item, which is discussion
Okay.
around the superintendent search. And I just had one comment for
Okay.
the committee to
Okay.
consider.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I don't think this has come up in any of our conversations yet, but I know one of the things, I would assume one of the things that the committee is going to be doing is considering timeline for the hiring. I know that the superintendent has announced that his retirement would end at the end of June, which means if we hired somebody that would start, let's say, the next day, then they basically have a little more than a month before the start of school into that role. I talked to the superintendent this past week to see if there's any precedence into overlapping time with superintendents. I would advocate for us to consider hiring a new superintendent by the close of this current school year and having some overlap. That's been done in the past. Here, obviously, we would have a little bit of overlap in salary during that time, but I think it'll be worth it to give that superintendent, if we can make that timeline the whole summer to engage. So I just think that's an important consideration for the committee to consider as they're developing the timeline, is to possibly think about overlapping some of that time toward the end, so.
Okay. So we are going to take a short break before we do public forum? Is that, okay, 6:45. We will come back at 6:45. Okay, we are back, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Satterfield for public forum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few reminders as we start public forum. The board respects public forum speakers. The board requests public forum speakers to address remarks to the entire board and not individual members. Each person speaking shall state his or her name and county of residence and have up to 3 minutes to make remarks, unless time is extended by majority of the board. Members, the board respects and appreciates the good intentions that bring citizens to speak at public forum. The board asks that speakers show their respect to the board, the staff, and other citizens by speaking in a manner that is civil and courteous. Again, and also if you can speak directly into the mic to ensure that our interpreter is able to hear your remarks. And we will get this show started with Kristen Ashley, and you'll have, say your name and county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Kristen Ashley, and I live here in Knox, but I'm in the Gibbs area. I want to say thank you for allowing me to speak tonight about this important matter. And I wanted to bring it to the entire board's attention of the sexual assault situation that's going on at Gibbs Middle School right now. I have left messages and emails, and they have gone without response. So I have come in front of you tonight so that this situation gets acknowledged. And when I say that I have sent emails to Jason Myers, Carly Harrington, Lori Driver, Mike McMillan, Florence, I don't want to slaughter her name. Jai, sorry. Renee Kelly, Dr. John, Razaus. He's the assistant superintendent. Ross Oakes and Mr. Bob Thomas. Those are the emails that I have sent, and they have gone unresponded. September 23rd, 4 8th grade girls have come forward of being sexually assaulted on campus by another girl. And now, as of yesterday, we are up to 8 victims, but only 7 have come forward because the other girl is too afraid to come forward. This morning, I was made aware that there is possibly another victim coming forward, and who knows how many more. These are just the 8, maybe 9 that we know of right now. The school, Candace Greer, the head principal, has not done nearly enough to ensure that these girls are safe on her campus or for future situations.
Ma'am.
Excuse me, if you can not mention names.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
I apologize. The solution at the school is to either keep the girls in the same class but separated on 2 separate sides of the room, or to change these victims' schedules. And that is absolutely not a solution. Why is it okay for the victims to be re-victimized and nothing happening to this predator? I'm sorry for calling this child a predator, but that is what she is. In cases of school shootings and violence and of other nature, a counselor is brought in for the victims and the other students that need to, so why is this not happening now? Us parents have been given the runaround, and we feel that the situation is not being properly addressed, and I was actually threatened by Gibbs Middle School with legal action because I threatened to take my daughter out of school for her safety. On October 5th, there was a case in California of a 13-year-old boy who was arrested just on suspicions of sexually assaulting.
Thank you. We do have to end this now. Thank you so much for coming. Next, we will have David L. Sorry about that. If you can state your name and county of residence.
My name is David Lochuk, and my county is Knox County. I've been getting a lot of calls, seeing a lot of mothers and parents crying during the mandate that came out, and kids being frustrated, and parents not knowing what to do because they're backed in a corner with no options. I take the word mandate to heart very strong, especially being born and raised in this town. where I've had nothing but freedom to live my life the way I see fit. I have a small speech that I would like to read. In 1986, liberty, freedom, and the American dream was pursued by a great man, putting his life on the line. Faced with death, he pushed forward through gunfire, hypothermia, and the risk of drowning while swimming in hope of escaping then communist Romania. Without knowing English or what was next, he kept faith in God and focused on giving his family freedom. That wasn't available to them or anyone during the communist regime in Romania. That great man was my dad. Today I stand here with a heavy heart. I can see the direction that these one-sided mandates can lead us to. I can see the beast that is after our freedom, but I also can see hope. As a free nation, everyone has their God-given constitutional rights to implement safety precautions for their own families and themselves, while others have the free will to do for themselves without any mandates infringing on their belief of freedom. These mandates are a slippery slope leading us all away from constitutional freedom and right into the belly of the beast. We must stand united in the constant protection of our already torn fabrics of our freedom. We need to set a precedence for our future generations. Segregating our children for standing up to protect freedom against unlawful mandates and to use them as pawns in a fight for fair freedom instead of this being a fight for adults. Dear children of our great nation, stand strong, for to stand for truth is not easy, but know you are supported and your tears weigh extremely heavy on your parents. Do not let someone tell you that standing for freedom is wrong, because our nation was built off all brave acts to stand for justice in the midst of unpopular opinion. God bless the parents who are frustrated, hurt, worried, and who have shed tears in fear of losing their constitutional rights for their children and themselves. I stand here today, united with others in the pursuit of freedom against unconstitutional mandates, and we stand for the innocence and rights of our children.
Next, we'll have Kevin Hill. We have a total of 65 people signed up on public forum, and so if we can make sure we hear the names call up so we can keep it moving. Kevin Hill is next.
Kevin Hill, Knox County. Over a year ago, citizens warned you that you would be in this boat if you made the ill-informed decision to violate the constitutional rights of the students and staff of KCS. But because you did, now, instead of making the robust arguments necessary to counter this distortion of the ADA, your lawyers' hands are tied by your past actions. Had you resisted tyranny a year ago, for that's what it was, this lawsuit may have come sooner, but then you would have been able to argue the right defense, that the accommodation was too burdensome because it causes KCS to violate constitutional rights. For sure, the fault additionally lies on other people's feet, the Board of Health, the County Commission, the governor, but their bad actions didn't justify your own. And so I'm here tonight, other people are going to give you solutions. I'm here to point out another way you violate rights every meeting, like the one you just stated a second ago. The board's policy that in public forum persons are prohibited from addressing individuals or using caustic language is a violation of the First Amendment, and that has been attested to on at least 3 occasions by the U.S. Supreme Court. In Connick versus Myers, speech on public issues occupies the highest rung of the hierarchy of the First Amendment values and is entitled to special protection. In New York Times versus Sullivan, debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials.
Criticism of their official conduct does not lose its constitutional protection merely because it's effective criticism and hence diminishes their official reputations. And Davidson versus Randall, in the context of all alleged First Amendment violations, in particular, this court has found that a challenged action by a governmental official is fairly attributable to the state when the sole intention of the official is taking the action was to suppress speech critical of his or her conduct of official duties or fitness for public office. So I can't tell you you have ugly shoes, but I can tell you by name you do a terrible job. I would think we the people absolutely do have the right to publicly address officials, specifically by name during public meetings, no matter if you personally disapprove. You remain accountable to the public. In our current highly litigious environment, one would think the board might conduct itself a bit more prudently than these foolish policies. I can almost assure you the law department will say, well, wait until they sue. But is that truly the proper conduct of an elected official, someone who has made an oath to defend the Constitution?
Next, we'll have Caitlin Jones. Caitlin Jones. Bab, you have something you would like to say?
Yes, I would like to see if the board would extend Ms. Jones the ability to speak for 5 minutes.
If we do that for her, should we not do it for other people?
Is there a second to extend, can you make a motion?
I would like to move to let Ms. Jones speak for 5 minutes. She reached out to me today and had some reasons that she would like to speak for 5 minutes, and I said I would ask the board, and it's up to the board to decide whether they want to or not. Thank you.
Is there a
I
second?
will vote no, Ms. Babb, because just because she called you today doesn't give her the right to speak longer than anybody else. I've sympathized with her, whatever her problem is, but you see what I'm talking about? If you extend it to her, why not extend it to everybody else?
Is there a
Okay,
second
we'll
for the
vote.
motion?
We'll vote.
Is there a second? Motion fails. Ms. Caitlin, you have 3 minutes.
I'm sure there is no need for me to introduce myself, as this is not my first time speaking in front of this board. In fact, I spoke to you all on September 9th, just shy of a month ago. In that speech, I explained everything that happened with Alec last year and why this board and the school system needed to be better prepared this year. I explained that Alec and other kids like him could not wear a mask or do virtual learning. In that speech, I made suggestions such as having a separate school for children with disabilities who could not wear masks and could not learn virtually. I know at least one board member listened to me then because this person personally reached out to me, which was very much appreciated. My issue is that from an outside perspective, it looks once that meeting was over, there was no action taken to get prepared. Parents like myself are finding it harder to be understanding, patient, and calm when our children are not being offered the same dignity, respect, and education as other children without disabilities. On Monday, Alec was sent home for his inability to wear a mask. I would like to ask this board, as well as any other person in this district or even in this room, that you feel that that Alec's doctors are wrong when they say Alex should be exempt from wearing a mask. If the answer is no, you do not think that they are wrong, then I would like to ask why you are choosing to follow a policy that discriminates against him and children like him. I have heard multiple people say it's a judge's order and you must follow it. I want to point out that you all must follow the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Free Appropriate Public Education under Section 504 and the Rehabilitation Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that my son's IEP is protected under law as well. All of these laws require a school district to provide a free education to each qualified person with a disability who is in your jurisdiction, regardless of the nature or severity of the disability. While the students who filed the lawsuit were never denied their education, under this mandate, my child is being denied an education. Not only can I make a case that you are breaking these laws, I could also say that because of the nature of my son's severity and disability, that he is also being discriminated against.
I'm now asking you for a reasonable accommodation and making sure that effective immediately my son can go to school. It is no longer an acceptable answer to say that you are working on filing amendments and petitions. It is no longer an acceptable answer for staff to agree that this is wrong behind closed doors while doing nothing to change it. It is no longer acceptable to not allow children into the building who are unable to wear masks. It is no longer acceptable for children with disabilities to have their IEPs and 504s broken because your hands are tied. This is your community, this is your schools, and these children are under your protection. You are supposed to be teaching them. If you are unwilling or unable to tell Judge Greer that you will not comply with the discriminatory part of this mandate that he has passed down upon our kids with disabilities, then I ask that you turn in your resignations and allow people who will fight for children with disabilities they will fight for children with disabilities.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
And I do want to
Ms. Jones, we'll have Lauren and Jericho next.
I'm not meaning to
Lauren and Jericho. Next, we'll have Ingrid Maddox. Ingrid Maddox.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. My name is Ingrid, and I am a mom of a 12-year-old daughter who is enrolled at Farragut Middle School. You may know of me or those in my circle. We have been the ones to show up every day and have consistently taken a stand to voice our First Amendment rights of grievances of the government for the mask mandate in Knox County. The mandate that was forced upon our children is unjustified, unmerited by the data, and unconstitutional. I know that you have already voted on this as our local government for a freedom of choice by the parents, as the parents know best. We are all aware it was an injunction by Judge Greer that forced this mandate. This is why I'm here to support you, to be a voice of the people, so you may hopefully create legislative change that we, the people, do not want a mask mandate on our children. And I hope our voice and our stand and our presence helps you make a difference in the court systems. I do understand there is legislation that is already in the works by your board to give us a reprieve from this mandate. For that, I thank you. Now, please let me share these words that keep resounding in my heart and spirit. If tomorrow all the things were gone I had worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my daughter and my husband, I'd thank the lucky stars to be living here today, because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, because there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. This is what we are fighting for. This is what we are standing for. This is what we are speaking up for freedom. I gave up about a minute and a half of my time to read that because I think we get very busy in our lives. It's easy to forget the freedom that has been given to us from all our heroes that served in our military. We should not forget the sacrifice that they have made for our freedoms, and we should not so easily let them be taken away from us by an overreaching government. I am a mom, I am a citizen living in the United States of America, and whatever I can do to help stand and fight for freedom, I absolutely must do so. I love my daughter, and I love our children, and I care about their future, and I care about inalienable rights. Breathing oxygen is an inalienable right. And let me close that there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation about COVID. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be made known and brought to light. The truth will come out.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Next, we'll have Katie Lehner. All right, is Katie here? Is that? State your name and county your residence for me.
Hello, I'm Katie Lehner, and I go to Farragut Middle School. As a student at Farragut Middle, I feel that students deserve a voice too. I'm happy to be here today discussing this topic. I believe that students should have the right to decide what goes on our body. We should not have someone force us to cover our face. And if we decide to have our own rights, we are punished and forced to comply, or else your presentness at school is unnecessary. This is unfair and unjust. The people that comply are allowed to get their education and continue school. The people that do not comply are segregated, discriminated, and ridiculed by many. Our work is placed in the office, but cannot be brought to us. This is not okay. When wearing a mask, I feel like you're silencing me, shutting out my smile, but this time we will not be silenced. We'll stand for freedom. I am aware that the school system cannot change this order unless directed by the court. Although I do feel that no one in the school system is willing to stand for the students. All the weight falls on our backs, and it's unfair. According to the Constitution, we shall not be discriminated or segregated, but that is happening daily in our school system. My body is not your puppet, Judge Greer. Having segregated rooms for students with no masks is ridiculous. We were perfectly fine 2 weeks ago, and now they treat us like we have a foreign disease. We are the people. We are future America. If we don't take a stand this time, next time our freedom will be gone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next we'll have Drew Kinmer. State your name and county residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Drew Kinmer, Knox County. The stories you hear tonight because of this federal mask order by this judge and Governor Lee, that special session needs to be right now. Never in my adult life did I ever dream that I would see America in the shape that it is right now. I've never fathomed that we would be blatant indicators of tyranny in this country, where the government would be mandating, ordering, or threatening its citizenry into compliance if it did not follow the instructions and obliviate basic human rights and medical autonomy. It's unjust. The 10th Amendment states the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Although these clear limits to the federal government, to the federal power, are stated quite plainly in the Constitution, it is clear we continue to find ways to circumvent that. In this case, we are witnessing another example of government overreach superseding the governor's executive order against mask opt-outs, while we again find ourselves tangled in a web of confusion and with the burden again ultimately on our children. These masks are unlawful, ineffective, divisive, suppressive, harmful, and now have forever permanently impacted all of our lives at a local, state, national, and global level, because especially right now have impacted the children. If teachers are so quickly to quarantine those who will not comply with an unconstitutional order, when does it end? Parents, this is a test right now, and shall I dare say what comes after the mask? Continued compliance perpetuates this control problem into other problems later on. The mask hypocrisy is leading our children into a world that is controlled and conditioning our children, psychologically damaging our children. Let me be clear. My children and our children will not be the vessel into which some individual, school, state, or the government decides they have the moral authority over me and my child's health. I went into literature previously on the damaging effects of the toxic CO2 levels, bacteria, and oxygen deprivation. It's irreversible in a young child. We need a unity and respect for these choices, not division. You choose, I choose. You see, it's just a mask. It's just 6 feet. It's just until the cases go down. Well, Knox County, the cases have gone down. It's just to keep others from being scared. It's just until we get a vaccine. Now it's wear a mask if you've got a vaccine. It's just an app for tracing. It's just some areas, stay away from those kids over there that are isolated in those areas. It's just for protecting others. It's just mandatory. It's just only these scientists and not those scientists. It's just the law now, and it's the law forever. It's just because of the second wave. It's just another lockdown. It will soon be better, almost 2 years later. It's just the swab. It's just for medical information. It's just a card to store your medical history for that kid's passport to enter school now. It's just so you can send your kids to school now. It's just so you can get an education now. It's just a school gym to keep you separated from others. It's just for a few more weeks or another year.
Thank you so much.
It's not just.
Next we'll have Mary Ann Eisenbaha. Mary Ann Eisenbaha. All right, next we'll have Helena Rego. Helena. You can state your name and county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. I'm Helena Rego, and I'm a Knox County resident. Is this where I pick up my FBI agents? Let's go, Brandon. I'm really trying to show grace with this situation, but now apparently showing grace is a microaggression in our beautiful Woketopia of ours. I truly thank our supportive board members for their support, and we know as a whole that no one on the board or in Knox County Schools really does have control over this situation. But I am heartbroken and distraught over the lack of creativity and general thinking outside of the box in our district. It's the beginning of fall in East Tennessee, and with the exception of a couple of hours, weather has been beautiful. Why have we not taken classes, especially our special needs children's classes, outside into a breezeway? There's a solution there. One thing I know is that this is about money and funding at the heart of this issue. This isn't about a virus or masks anymore. We saw the ESSER presentation presented by Ford, and now we have a Ford megasite coming to Tennessee. What a coincidence. We know that the federal government is offering additional money for universal masking. We know that the Secretary of Education is threatening states like Tennessee for not universal masking and allowing parent choice. We know that the state of Tennessee is also pushing universal masking for money, and we know that the CDC only recommends universal masking for schools because the teachers' unions were lobbying them. Yes, this is true. Thanks to FOIA requests, we have those emails. I would like to know if Knox County Board of Education has been encouraged to change their original health plan from August 27th. We know that this needs to be resubmitted every 6 months until September 2023, so it's not really an unreasonable question. Also, no one seems to be able to answer me where I can find information on ESSER allocation in our county. Something that smells like crap about all of this, especially with the very public comments of elected leaders in our community along with activists. For me, I made a promise to my children never to force them to wear a mask ever again, and I will not break that promise to them. We cannot ask our children to suspend reality about the effectiveness of masks, because obviously if your mask works, then it doesn't matter if anybody else is wearing one, you're protected. They see the hypocrisy of people walking up to this very meeting room, maskless, stopping at the door, pulling a mask out of their bag, putting it on their face, walking into this room, standing up here and demanding universal masking. Now I have to watch my daughter's personality change, deal with her meltdowns, the eczema breaking out on her face, and the physical effects of the anxiety that she's feeling from having to wear a mask. The last question that I will present to you is, what is the number of unenrollments in KCS in the last 2 weeks? I asked my daughter to please give this situation 2 weeks before she makes a decision to leave the school system like the rest of our family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next we'll have Molly Rago. Hi, Molly, if you state your name.
Hi, my name is Molly Rago, and I live in Knox County. I'm 10 years old. I am on the VEX and Safety Patrol team. I also go to the Gifted and Talented. When my mom first told me about the judge's order, I told her I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to wear a mask. Over the weekend, I felt scared. I was nervous and scared to say no to a mask. When KCS called and canceled school, I was very relieved. Walking into school, I felt brave but nervous. Once I said no to a mask, I was put in a room with a poster that said, "Your voice matters." I spent 3 days in that room at a little kid's table by myself. I got busy work for the first day. I only got my real schoolwork because my mom made sure of it. I was only allowed to stand up and stretch because my mom made sure of it. I was only allowed to go to recess or get a library book because my mom made sure of it. Currently, I'm learning to advocate for myself in preparation for middle school. Last week, I realized that this was first about me, but now it's about the special needs children. In isolation with me was a special needs child. I'll call him Z. Z got pulled out of the room and had to wear a mask. He said no many times, but he was still forced. With Z's condition, he gets very upset wearing a mask. The next day, he refused and was threatened to have his markers taken away. A little while later, he was taken out of a room saying, "No, I don't want to wear a mask." I want to go to homeschool, but I also need to experience with my options. Since Friday, I've been wearing a mask. It is harder to concentrate, I have headaches, and my stomach hurts. My mom has also seen changes in my attitude as well. Not good changes. Please do something about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Molly. Next we'll have Stacy Rowe. can state your name and county and residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Stacy Rowe, and I live in Knox County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. We started this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, reciting with liberty and justice for all. Liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. The superintendent declared Tuesday, September 26th, a success. I guess that depends on your definition of success. Thousands of students stayed home and 722 students were isolated. Your words, not mine. Synonyms for isolation are alone, seclusion, segregation, separateness, and solitude. Certainly, this is not how Knox County defines success. I see both masked and unmasked faces in this room, but our children do not have this choice. They can't remove their mask to speak or ask questions so that they can be heard and understood. They don't have that choice. Children must wear a mask even though the very box that contains surgical masks says, and I quote, "This is a single-use product. Please destroy after use. Recommended use time is 4 hours." When the mask is no longer tolerated, there will be a tendency to touch it often, increasing the risk of contact contamination and the risk of inhaling viral particles. When the mask is wet, its property decreases, therefore it is less breathable. The WHO says that masks can be effective if you don't touch, don't talk, don't speak loudly, or sing, if you can avoid not being hot or avoid the mask getting wet, which is exactly the opposite of what most kids are going to do. And let's be honest, I've watched all of you adults in here touching your masks all night too. Masks have been added as part of the EUA, which expressly states that persons must give willful consent and understand the risks and must have the right to refuse without complication or punishment. Have children been given the right to refuse without complication or punishment? No. No, they have not. They have been forced into compliance. COVID poses almost no risk to our children at all. Mask or no mask, they are still going to catch COVID and they are still going to recover at a rate of 99.992%. And 100% here in Knox County, thank God. You need to get back to your mission of providing excellent and accessible learning opportunities that empower all students to realize their full potential. Stop the nonsensical madness. None of this is reasonable accommodation. Our government and its laws are not a guide to human decency and morality. History has shown us this time and time again. You cannot look me in the eye and give me any lawful, moral, or scientific reason that 722 students were isolated and denied their education. If our elected officials cannot stand up for our liberty, then who can? Is it a question of can't or won't? The bottom line is masks are illegal. They were illegal last year and they're illegal now. Segregation is illegal. Denying education is illegal.
Thank you so much. State your name and county residence. You have 3
Sure,
minutes.
I'm Andrea Feaster. I'm at Knox County. I would ask you guys to just give me just a little bit of grace. I stutter, but after seeing what these kids had to go through this past week, I will be uncomfortable for 3 minutes. Okay? So I had a whole speech written. I hit my wall today. I reread what Greer said. So if anybody wants to give him a message, please do. We don't care what we complied to last year. We were trying to be nice. We were trying to get along. That is over. As well as when he said, we will get in trouble if our kids don't go to school. Let me explain to you, we do not care. We do not care. We are done. We want you guys to help us, tell us how we can help you. You cannot imagine all of these stories we hear every day. We got to say the pledge tonight, right? Not our kids in segregation. It's not isolation. It's segregation. That's illegal. Since 1964, that's been illegal in the United States of America. We have to say it in front of the school, or they don't get to say it at all. Our kids do not get any kind of work. If they do, it's nothing. They have had to re-mask themselves in mesh masks, some, to get an education. This is not okay. This is not America. And if you, please help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next we'll have Brianna Plott. You can state your name, county residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
My name's Brianna Plott, and I am in Knox County School District. I have 2 kids in KCS, one with a disability and one without. I have concerns of staph infection on my child without a disability while wearing a mask due to skin issues, among other health issues. I've got concerns with him. With my child with a disability, he has a very rare form of muscular dystrophy, which when wearing a mask causes undue stress on the lungs and heart, makes it difficult for him to breathe. No one's disabilities or health concerns should be considered devalued next to anybody else's. They are all equal. Under the 14th Amendment, my children have the rights to bodily autonomy, due process, and a right to equal education, which is all being denied as of right now. Even with exemptions, my child's privacy is invaded. With exemptions, every person in the school will know of a child's disability, even if it is not noticeable at first glance. This puts a target on their back for bullying, not just from other children, but from administration as well, as which you have heard. Privacy, which is supposed to be protected under FERPA and the PPRA, which gives rights for privacy and confidentiality. The only way to make this fair and equal is by giving choice. Otherwise, we end up with an even worse issue of bullying we have ever seen in our lifetime. And let's face it, the bullying policy is a joke. Otherwise, the bullies, both child and administration, would have been put in check over their behavior, especially in the past week. Luckily, I can say at my child's school, the administration has not been an issue, but I know many others, again, who have. So far, my kids are being punished and sent to ALE, which is just another name for in-school suspension. My kids are not even allowed to be around their classmates, even when their classmates aren't wearing masks, examples such as lunch and recess. If this doesn't change, many others, as well as myself, will have to be forced to pull our kids from Knox County Schools, in which a lot of us would prefer not to. Please help us fight against this, and I thank the ones of you who have helped. I really do, and I really appreciate it. But we need to fight harder. That federal judge does not rule over other federal laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll have Matthew Osgood. You can state your name, county residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Matthew Osgood. I live in Knox County. I have 4 children in the Knox County school system. My oldest, who is 17, is a senior at South Doyle High School and has been in isolation without proper instruction since September 28th. I am here today to discuss her treatment by staff while being held in solitary confinement. On day 1, she was not allowed to use the restroom unless she agreed to put on a mask. She was also told that her parents should find her alternative schooling if she was going to continue to refuse to wear a mask. She was refused entry into the Young campus and escorted to the main campus with a resource officer as if she were a criminal, where she received no instruction for the day. She was told by assistant principal that it would be up to her teachers if she would receive any assignments. On day 2, my wife received a phone call from the assistant principal. She advised that my wife that my child needed to be picked up due to her refusal to wear a mask. She proceeded to tell my wife that my child could be arrested for contempt, for breaking the law. That doesn't exist. No administrator in that position should be threatening to have a child arrested for simply exercising their right to breathe freely. Is it the position of this board that this behavior is acceptable from an assistant principal employed by KCS? On day 3, I received a call from the school, and I was told that my child could be removed from my custody by DCS, simply for my refusal to pick her up while in solitary confinement. My child has been poorly treated since the start of this nonsense. She has experienced public shaming from students in person and on social media. She also has been shamed by certain staff members in front of other students where she refuses to comply. She has been called a liar by certain office staff and a racist by some students. She has experienced depression due to the lack of student and teacher interaction by being segregated in a room with the blinds and the doors shut as if she is a prisoner. She has gone without lunch twice during this time and has counted absent while being physically present. I don't have a lot of time, but the child in question I have adopted, she lost her parents due to drug situation. She was adopted by my mother. She watched my mother die in front of her. I mean, I don't know how much trauma, a child can experience, but I really don't understand all this, tactics by school members based off of a face mask that works no better than a chain link fence stops a fart.
Next we'll have Megan Wood. Please state your name, county, or residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Megan Wood, Knox County. Thank you for the opportunity to address the community on the matter of discrimination against children with disabilities that is occurring in Knox County. I think we all can agree that this federally imposed mask mandate has become quite divisive. Some oppose it, some embrace it, and some are oblivious to the harmful effects of the federal mask mandate. I'd like to share how Judge Greer's lack of foresight is affecting my family. This is a lyric from the song Revolutionary. Let's take some time, open our eyes, look and listen, and we're gonna find that we're more alike than we are different. October is Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and more alike than different is one of the slogans advocates use. I am not just an occasional rabble-rouser, as the plaintiffs mislead you to believe. I am, in fact, an advocate for my child. I have a daughter with Down syndrome. She's 8, and she's in 2nd grade, and her name is Leah. Leah has Down syndrome and is developmentally delayed, which grants her eligibility for an individualized education plan under IDEA and is further protected by the ADA, which prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. Yet the judge handed down a federal mandate that is egregiously discriminatory. Now my family knows what discrimination feels like. Leah has attended Farragut Primary School since 2018 with an Individualized Education Plan, or IEP. Her IEP team must include parents, teachers, special education specialists, a school representative, and usually includes therapists. In short, this plan is a written legal document that requires the student to receive the agreed-upon special education services in the least restrictive environment based on her individual specialized needs with reasonable accommodations or modifications. Last year, Leah was afforded reasonable accommodations for the mask mandate that was in place. She attempted to comply with the mask mandate. In fact, we tried very hard to comply. This year, Leah has missed 8 school days thus far since the judge's unlawful and unjust mandate, which is in direct violation of the IDEA and ADA. Leah has not been granted safe and appropriate access to her school. Why? Because she has a disability which the judge does not deem eligible for reasonable accommodations, even though the law clearly states Leah's disability is eligible for such. Since when is a federal judge part of an IEP team decision? In my mind, this is all Judge Greer's doing, and that's where I rest my grievances. Where are the checks and balances? With his unreasonable ruling, he put a screeching halt to what was a very successful start to the school year for my second grade daughter. We love our school, and I can't wait till she is allowed to take her rightful place in the classroom. I want to thank KCBOE's defense teams, David Sanders and Amanda Morse, for recognizing this discrimination and filing for a stay. I want to ask you, if you care about this, call Judge Greer's office, demand he uphold the law, and stop discriminating against children with disabilities. Ask him to listen to Knox County's motion to stay the preliminary injunction pending appeal.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Maggie Noe. Maggie Noe.
I'm Maggie Noe, and I'm from Knox County. This is my first time speaking here. Now I have a vested interest of a kindergartner. I want to say thank you to those who have worked really hard over the last 18 months. I also want to recognize the hundreds, even thousands, of students with disabilities that aren't on the two. I want to say I see you. I see you in the grocery store. I see you as my client. I see you in this room. I see you in the schools. I see you. I'm going to ask the board, do you see them in the next months? Hopefully not even years or days. Will you see them? Will you see those other students who are struggling? Will you fight for them? I will continue to fight for the one in my home, in my family, in this room, in the grocery store. But will you continue to fight for them? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Hillary Godsey. All right, next we'll have Bill Taylor. All right, you can state your name, county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm William Taylor, Knox County. Some courageous stories here. This is incredible. At the peak of COVID in schools on August 30th, there were 923 active school cases. September 27th, the day that this mandate went in order, in effect, 214 cases. That's a decline of 77%, with nobody wearing masks or required to wear masks, all on its own. I've been accused of intimidating kids by walking my own kids up to school carrying a flag. I've had people come up to me and say, "Why are you intimidating our children? They're afraid to go to school." Meanwhile, as I stand outside with my children, F you, go get a job. Who's intimidating who? That's ridiculous that we should be subjected to that for walking peacefully, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, carrying a flag. At the beginning of the September 9th hearing, Judge Greer lays out the court rules. This is ridiculous. And he says to everybody, the rule allows everyone to remove their mask while speaking, and that makes it easier for the court reporter to get a clear record of this. The plaintiff's attorney comes up and speaks, "COVID can be spread through droplets that are coming out of my mouth as I speak. So that's why we must have a mask mandate." Do you hear the insanity and how ridiculous that is? What about our kids who need to be able to communicate with their teachers? Don't they have the same need to communicate with their teachers and vice versa? Why is it just the judge and the attorneys? Amen. I've spoken to several Farragut administrators where my kids are. Every single one of them said that it's impossible to enforce this. You know what? Shame on them. You know why? Because, sure, every time I hear it, oh, it's the judge's order. Fair enough. But you have control, Mr. Principal, Mr. Bartlett, of controlling your campus. And the hypocrisy, it oozes hypocrisy. When my kid who comes to the front door and is asked if she's going to wear a mask, honestly says, "No, I don't believe in wearing a mask," and is sent to isolation like you've heard. Meanwhile, the rest of the school is not wearing a mask. I have a video. 1-minute video of the Farragut Commons ground. 38 students are in this video. 34 of them had no mask on, and nobody says anything to them. Shame on you, school. Shame on you. Hypocrisy. And Mr. Bartlett wrote me an email saying that he's sorry that if it seems inconsistent, we're working on that. At this point, I will take just over the mouth. That is contempt of court, and nobody's holding him responsible for it, but our kids that are honest are punished for it. That has to end.
Thank you. Next we'll have Hannah Taylor. Next we'll have Hannah Taylor. Next we'll have Kimberly Parks. Kimberly Parks. If you state your name and county residence, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Kimberly Parks, Knox County, District 5. I had like this, my computer's not even booting up. I had this really great speech prepared for y'all, but a lot of the people here have already said everything I was going to say. But one of the things that I don't get is that our children are not affected by COVID-19. They're not. We've had 0 deaths here in Knox County. And I had a thing in my speech that, so influenza in 2018 killed 643 children. 7 of them were in Knox County. COVID-19, and only and that's 8 months. Flu season's about 8 months, right? And right now, as of yesterday, COVID-19, 21 months in, has killed 637 children, and 0 of them are in Knox County. So COVID-19 has killed less, and, well, I'm sorry. So the flu took what took the flu 8 months to do, it took COVID-19 21 months to do. Let that sink in, guys. That's all I got. Thanks.
So next we have Amanda Leak, and then after that, Tina Shields and Elizabeth Chan. And if you'll please state your name and county of residence.
My name is Amanda Leak. I'm from Knox County. Sorry. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight for my student and others. I attended last week's meeting, and after statements made that they were happy to see so many complying and thinking students were largely okay with masks, I knew I needed to speak up for my student and so many others. Students, staff, and teachers had their choice taken away simply because so many were not wearing one, unlike those that always had a choice to mask. We are in this situation due to parents, 4 students, their lawyers, and 1 federal judge. Why did they get a chance to stay home and do online, and we were not? That was offered last year. It's not offered this year. That's not fair. It's not equal. The burden of those that are for mask choice and autonomy over their bodies is much greater. Again, not equal. Kids, staff, and teachers have been segregated or sent home until they comply. Not equal. Those for mask choice are being bullied, threatened, and punished until they comply. Again, not equal. My student was told by a staff member in her class that you could be suspended if you were in isolation, segregation, for more than 2 days. Not true, but nobody told the students it wasn't true, and I haven't heard from the principal. What about all the students that want their grades not to suffer for affecting their college future? They cannot participate or access to in-person learning until they comply. Not equal. Not one student, staff, or teacher wanting to mask was ever segregated, sent home, denied in-person learning, or had to choose not to mask for their extracurricular activities or fear for grades. Not equal. I moved here from California. Having my child's education held hostage for an agenda is not right. If we do not have a mask choice, we lose autonomy over our bodies, and the vaccination mandate for public education is next. It's happened. My last school promised to stand up, school board promised to stand up for parents and choice for students' choice. Then they accepted federal funding that stripped with strings attached that took our rights away. Please tell me I'm not going to see that happen again here in Knox County. Until our community changes and learns to love and allow others to live their best life the way they want, I do not see a bright future for us or our children. Thank you for your time.
Tina Shields.